Good morning, friends. You guessed it, we're having more rain. So it looks like we're going to have some more rain this week, but we will keep on gardening, keep on raising the chicks. And check these guys out. These are our little pullets that we've been raising for Trinity Haymarket, and we've got about another week and a half or so, 2 weeks, and these guys will go to their new homes, but they're all looking good. You guys, if you've been following our channel, you know we use this little A-frame structure we built for our seed starts, and it is pretty empty. We have only a couple of little tomato plants here that were kind of sickly and just never really took off out of all the hundreds that we've planted. And so these guys are just kind of being nursed and see if we can get some life in those guys. But they are everything else is now planted out here in the field. So let's take a look and see what we've got going on there. We've got all the boysenberries. Look at these guys. Beautiful, sweet, tasty boysenberries, looking really good and growing well. We've got some new flowers that just planted this past week. So these first two rows right here are some different kinds of flowers. These obviously haven't come up yet, I just planted them. And then we have these rows over here. We got a few things that came up and a few things my wife planted, but they are, again, these little sections are new. We just planted those. We've got our beans. The bush beans are looking really good and already flowering. We need to get some BT and some sea mist on these guys, but sea mist won't do a lot of good if it's going to rain today. The pole beans, you see how green, nice and green the bush beans are. Right next to them, the climbers, the pole beans, are still looking kind of yellowish. I don't know if it's too much water or if they're missing something. And then our tomatoes, all of those tomatoes that we started from seed, these guys are looking really good. A few flowers on them. We're going to try the trellising of them this year and see if we can keep them trimmed up and trellised to this fence. Probably start getting some of those trellised. I do have a few of the bush type tomatoes that are in traditional cages made out of concrete reinforcement material. And in between a lot of these tomatoes, we have things like thyme and basil planted. So we'll hope that the basil and the other herbs will come out and do well. We've got the covers taken off of the peppers, and these pepper plants are looking really good. So they're all I think there are 6 different kinds of peppers, but the peppers are looking really good. And we have our onions, which some are doing well and some are not. And I think they've been drowned by the rain a few times. We have our carrots, which surprisingly have done very well this year. This is our second planting. We harvested the ones out of the greenhouse. And we have tomatillas that just got transplanted, and those are doing good. We have the broccolini, which has done okay, but a little bit of a slow start. And yes, some of it is flowering, which is actually okay. That is all edible. And then we have the okra plants, which are doing really well and need to be thinned a little bit. So we'll get that done. And then we have out here, we have what do we have here? We have the escarole and the endive, which are still doing all right. We have a little bit of lettuce that's still struggling to come along. And the squash, which is just being decimated by squash bugs, but we're trying to keep those watered and keep them going. And then yesterday we moved. You know, the chickens were in this area out here. You know, where that brownish colored mulch soil is out there. And I moved them yesterday, and they are going to town, working this area back here. And absolutely loving digging through all the mulch and finding bugs. And of course we supplement feed them with grain. And then the area that they were in, my wife helped me yesterday, and we planted Connecticut field pumpkins and a few of the cantaloupes down here on the end. I've got a few more things, the vining type, really spreading out plants. These guys will get planted hopefully later today, so barring the rain. But that's what's going on out here. And our trench that we had to dig, we're still holding some water from all the rain, but it is keeping those fruit trees quite a bit drier, keeping the water drained off of them. So those guys are doing pretty well. They're doing better. I'm going to show you, we have one just for kicks. I know we're in the first year, you're supposed to pull all the fruit off of your trees, your fruit trees, particularly these apples, but wife couldn't help herself and has left one apple on here, and it's doing really good. One of these days I'll have to remember to silence my phone so it doesn't go off when I'm doing videos. But anyway, we have these apple trees that is kind of an experiment, but my wife left one apple on here, cute little apple on there, just for fun, to see what it would do. But the apple trees are looking pretty good. They're looking better since we've been able to, you can see how around the bottom of them they stayed really wet, and so we have created this little channel. I'll have to get that cleaned up, but right now it is keeping the water from all the rain drained off of those guys, and I'm doing a pretty good job of it. So the trees are looking better, and we'll get some, because I'm sure with all the water on those guys, they have washed a lot of the nutrients and fertilizers and things out of the soil. So we'll get them refertilized and hopefully baby them along and keep their feet dry. So anyway, that's kind of an update out here on the field, and things are looking pretty good considering all the weather and soil challenges we've had this year, but so far so good. But let's go take a look at the greenhouse real quick. That's where some of the tomatoes, we haven't grown tomatoes in our greenhouse before, but you remember those, we had 42 tomato plants that we grew from organic heirloom tomato slices, and you can see that these plants are looking nice. They're looking healthy and looking pretty good in here. We've got them spaced about 18 inches apart, and we'll get these trellised up as well as they grow. And we have some black Russians that have been kind of slow to get going, but they are the little black Russian tomatoes. I think there are 12 of those. Those guys are looking pretty good. We'll just let them keep growing and thin them as need be, but so far so good. The grapevines are doing well. Got them all of them staked up and on strings, and so these little grape clusters are looking really good. The book I've been reading about growing grapes and fruit trees and things like that, but there's probably some amount of the grapes that we need to trim off and keep the total linear feet of vines and stuff trimmed back. It is really hard to do when they look so good, but these grape clusters look nice for right now. But I know there are some theories about taking some of them off so they can put more energy into fewer clusters, but overall they're doing pretty well, and we'll just keep an eye on that and see what else needs to be done to keep them healthy. We also have this little greenhouse. We normally over the winter keep our potted plants and things in there, but we've also found that like yesterday afternoon we harvested all of the garlic out of the kitchen garden, and so we've harvested the garlic, and so it needs to dry. It needs to dry out. All the plants and things need to dry. So we're gonna keep it in here where it's nice and dry and nice and hot, and hopefully get these guys to dry out well so we can preserve them. But yeah, some nice looking garlic turned out well this year. So I did get the asparagus beds cleaned up, somewhat cleaned up, and so we've been harvesting more asparagus out of there. We have this is where the that garlic we just talked about. That's where it came out of. The Swiss chard here, this little spot of Swiss chard, it's looking really good. I need to weed it, but looking really nice. And onions are looking good. And since the onions will be, in the hot weather, they'll be ready to harvest soon, I've gone ahead and between each row of the onions, there's now a row of 2 different kinds of our lettuce mix. And it will look kind of like this. That's one of our lettuce mixes. And then these couple of rows there have been replanted in the lettuce mix. A few pickling cucumbers that will get them to grow up on this trellis and vine, looking good. And then got a little bit of work to do in this one. I did pull all of the radishes yesterday. They're in the cooler. A couple different kinds of carrots. The plants are still looking really good and healthy. And then the daikon radishes have flowered and bolted, but we're actually leaving those so we can keep the bees happy and coming out here. And then we have some rutabagas. I know they're a cooler weather crop, but they still look like they're doing well. Strawberries are still producing, still doing well. We're getting maybe half a pint or so off of this little bed every day. Blackberries are looking good. Right now some of the fruits are starting to turn red, but they're soon to be black. We have our raspberries, which look pretty good, and got a few raspberries coming on after they flowered, so those are looking good. Blueberries, I've actually been getting some off of here. I'll need to pull a few of these guys today, but our blueberries are looking really well. Plants look great, and so we're getting quite a few blueberries off of them. It doesn't look like the harvest is going to be as prolific as maybe it was last year, but still not too bad. And here in this bed we've got a little bit of dino kale, a little bit more Swiss chard, got some lettuce that's going to be harvested today and then replanted. We've got some arugula that is starting to bolt, but there's still quite a bit of the good leaves and things in there. We'll get that. More lettuce that needs to be harvested, and happy little bees out here doing their job and pollinating, and glad to see those guys. A lot of them are from our own beehives out there. But that's an update on the kitchen garden and the field garden, and so far everything doing pretty well. But we are expecting quite a bit more rain this week, and hopefully it won't drown anything out and we can continue to get some other things planted for the summer. So over the last month or so we've had some visitors. We've had some what we've looked up are called whistling ducks. We see a total of 5 of them, but they come usually in the morning and usually late in the evening. And I'm going to see if I can get these guys, because they're out here right now. I can see if I can get these guys on video for you. If they'll let me get close enough to them, we'll find out. So let's try.
If something should come between us, I promise I will stay. Even when we're treading water and the colors seem to fade. You know the truth of it is, I was scared to move forward, but now that I've made my way in, I will not turn around. Everything I am, through the bitter and the sweet, every word I said is a promise I will keep, because everything I have belongs to you. If all should fall apart, here's a kiss to forgive and forget.